Good morning, and welcome to the Universalist Church. Today we're online, and this is the place where love is the Spirit. We're glad you're here, whether you're one of the few folks in the sanctuary this morning or anywhere in the world. I'm the Reverend Dr. Adam Robersmith. I'm the senior minister of this congregation. If you're a visitor, we hope that you'll visit our webpage, www.westhartforduu.org, to learn more about us. There you can use our contact page to get onto our electronic mailing list. Our electronic communications are our best way of staying in contact with you. We look forward to helping you become part of the Universalist Church no matter where you are located. And as you see, we are worshiping online again until this particular pulse of the pandemic has passed. We will return in person again as soon as things improve sufficiently. At this point, I'm thinking that will probably be February, but we'll see what happens, and we'll let you know. After worship, we will have fellowship through Zoom, but we will also this morning have a program specifically about food from the Green Sanctuary Committee. They are going to be doing something about food, climate change, sustainability, and helping us figure out how best we can eat in this moment. You can find the link for that in your weekly news. And if you're not getting the weekly news, please do sign up for it on the website. So now I invite you to take a moment to make your mobile phones silent, turn off your email, put away your keyboards, and settle in for worship. If you have a home chalice right there, I invite you to light yours while we light ours here in the sanctuary. We begin today's service, which focuses on the spirituality and ethics of food, with John O'Donohue's Grace before meals. As we begin this meal with grace, let us become aware of the memory carried inside the food before us, the quiver of the seed awakening in the earth, unfolding a trust of roots and slender stems of growth. On its voyage toward harvest, the kiss of rain and surge of sun, the innocence of animal soul that never spoke a word, nourished by the earth, these things today becoming our food. The work of all the strangers whose hands prepared it, the privilege of wealth and health that enables us to feast and celebrate. Our opening hymn is called Give Thanks, and Richard Leslie will sing it for us this morning. Please join me in speaking the words of our affirmation, our covenant. It's printed in the description. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Our time for all ages this morning is a fun story about goats. I am not going to pretend to do goat voices because I think it will prevent me from being able to speak well enough to preach. But just imagine a family of goats as you hear Gregory, the Terrible Eater by Mitchell Sharmat. Once there was a goat named Gregory. He liked to jump from rock to rock, kick his legs in the air, and butt his head against walls. He was also a terrible eater. Every time he sat down to eat with his mother and his father, he knew that he was in trouble. "Would you like a tin can, Gregory?" asked his mother. "No, thanks," he replied. "How about a nice box, a piece of rock and a bottle cap?" asked the father goat. "Bah," said Gregory unhappily. "Well, I think this is a meal fit for a goat," said Mother Goat as she chewed on an old shoe. "It certainly is," said Father Goat as he ate a shirt, buttons and all. "I don't know why you're such a fussy eater, Gregory." "I'm not fussy," said Gregory. "I just want fruits and vegetables and eggs, fish, butter, good stuff like that." Mother Goat stopped eating the shoe. "Now what kind of food is that, Gregory?" "It's what I like," he said. "It's revolting," said Father Goat, and he wiped his mouth with his napkin. After Gregory was excused from the table, Father Goat said to Mother Goat, "Gregory is such a terrible eater." So the next morning, Mother and Father were enjoying a pair of pants and a coat for breakfast. "Good morning, Gregory," said his father and his mother. And he replied, "Good morning. May I have some orange juice, cereal, and some bananas for breakfast, please?" "Oh, no," said Mother Goat. "Have some of this nice coat and take a bite of these pants." "Oh, bah," said Gregory, and left the table. Father Goat threw down his napkin. "Oh, that does it. Gregory is just not eating right. We have to take him to the doctor." So the goats took Gregory to the doctor, and Dr. Ram was munching on a few pieces of cardboard. "What seems to be the trouble?" he asked. "Gregory is such a terrible eater," his mother said, "but we've offered him the best: shoes, boxes, magazines, tin cans, coats, pants, but all he wants is fruits and vegetables, fish, orange juice, and other horrible things." "And what do you have to say about this, Gregory?" asked the doctor. "I like what I like," said Gregory. "That makes sense." So he turned to Gregory's mother and father. "I have treated tricky eaters before. They have to develop a taste for good food slowly," he said. "So try giving him one new food each day until he eats everything." So that night, for dinner, Mother gave Gregory spaghetti and a shoelace in tomato sauce. "Oh, well, this isn't too bad," he said. And the next day, she gave him string beans and a rubber heel cut up into very small pieces spread throughout. "Well, that meal was good and rubbery," said Gregory. And the next day, Mother Goat said, "Today we have your favorite vegetable soup, but there is one condition. You may only have the soup if you eat the can." "Okay," said Gregory. "What's for dessert?" "Ice cream," said his father, "but you have to eat it through the box." "Well, okay," said Gregory. And after he finished his dinner, his father said, "I am so proud of you. You are really eating like a proper goat." "I'm beginning to like everything," said Gregory. And one evening, a few weeks later, the father goat asked, "Hey, has anybody seen my striped necktie?" "Not since breakfast," Mother Goat said. "Come to think of it, I haven't seen my sewing basket today, and I left it in the living room after supper last night." Father Goat turned to Gregory. "Have you been eating between meals?" "Well, yes, I can't help it. Now I like everything," Gregory said. "It's okay to eat like a goat, but you shouldn't eat like a pig," said Mother Goat. After Gregory went to bed, Mother Goat said, "I'm afraid Gregory is going to eat my clothes hamper." "Yes, and then my toolkit will be next," said Father Goat. "He's eating too much. We're going to have to do something about it." So the next evening, just before supper, Mother and Father Goat went down to the town dump, and they brought home 8 flat tires, a 3-foot pole, a broken violin, and half a car. They piled everything in front of Gregory's sandbox. So when Gregory came home, he said, "Well, what's all this stuff in the yard?" "It's your supper," said Father Goat. "It all looks so good," said Gregory. And he ate the tires and the violin, and then slowly ate the 3-foot pole. But when he started on the car, he had to admit it was too much. "I have a stomach ache, and I have to lie down." And Gregory went to his room. "I think Gregory finally had too much junk," said Father Goat. "Let's hope so," said Mother. And all night long, Gregory tossed and twisted and groaned and moaned. And the next morning, he went down for breakfast, and he said, "Could I please have 2 scrambled eggs, 2 pieces of wax paper, and some orange juice?" "And that sounds just right," said Father and Mother. And so it was. And that is the end of the story. We here at the Universalist Church are so grateful for all the ways that you support us and one another. By offering your time, talent, and treasure to this community, you help us serve our members, friends, and the wider community too. And so as part of that service, we share our general offering each week with the organizations that we have found that are in harmony with our values, who do work in the world that brings us ever closer to creating the beloved community. And so this month, we are sharing our offering with Operation Fuel. Operation Fuel was founded in 1977 after a worldwide oil embargo caused an unprecedented escalation in the price of home heating. It is the country's oldest fuel fund, whose primary purpose is to provide year-round emergency energy assistance to every city and town in Connecticut, aided by a statewide network of local fuel banks. They advocate for more just fuel policies, help people move out of homelessness, educate clients about energy efficiency, and provide a fund to help people pay their utility bills. Each year, they provide more than $2.4 million to nearly 19,000 people across the state. I know you're not here in the sanctuary this morning where it's really easy to give, but in a week where we see that on Tuesday, the temperatures are going to be in the teens at the highest, it's a good reminder that this is a moment in which we can give generously. So please, you can use the links in the description or the links on our website to make your donation to our Sunday morning offering so that we can share our offering with those who need it most. Thank you. Thank you for helping us to help others and to take care of this community too. Our responsive reading this morning is number 490. If you have a hymnal at home, you are welcome to grab one and participate along. I know not everybody does. It's called Wild Geese, and it's by Mary Oliver. Jim and I will read this together. You do not have to be good.
You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting.
You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves.
Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine.
Meanwhile, the world goes on.
Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers.
Meanwhile, the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again.
Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things.
And we'll sing together our doxology. As we begin our time of prayer and meditation this morning, I have a few things to share with you on behalf of the congregation. First, Karen H's dear friend Julia passed away recently, and she asks that we hold Karen and Julia and the entire Goodwill staff that knew Julia in our hearts and our prayers. Natasha P. is grateful to be out of the hospital and to have a diagnosis that she can work with to increase her health going forward. And Ray and Julia G. are thrilled to announce the birth of their granddaughter Nora to their daughter Lindsay and daughter-in-law Megan. Let us hold all of these people in our hearts, in our prayers, and in our minds, and share congratulations and comfort where appropriate. Please join me in prayer and meditation. Spirit, which is at the heart of life, which we call resilience, perseverance, which we see in the growing light and the evergreen, be with us. In times that break our hearts, times that call for more than we think we have to give, times that reveal our anxieties, our fears. When we are aching with grief or uncertainty, when we do not know how to move forward, when we are beset by troubles, overwhelmed by things that might not normally bring us low, in those times, give us the courage and the strength to continue on, to rely on one another, to act well in the world, and to nurture ourselves. After so much time in this pandemic, to have another round that is worrying, that is taking a toll on people and families and communities, on hospitals and healthcare workers. We know that this time has got all of us just a little bit more stressed than usual, with a little bit less capacity for deep breaths and for calm, perhaps even less capacity for hope. But in this moment, we find hope with one another in the promises of science, in the promises of community care, in the promises that each day that comes moves us closer to a resolution of this moment. And against that backdrop, we still have our lives. The joys of childbirth, of new jobs, creativity, of time spent with those that we love in whatever way we can. We still have the small pleasures of each day, a wonderful meal, a beautiful piece of music, a thought, a joke, a moment of laughter. In this time and in this way, let us hold to those moments of joy and pleasure, knowing that no matter what the background is, there is still possibility. There is still hope. There is still the promise of good here and now and yet to come. Please, let us join in a moment of stillness in which we may pray the prayers of our hearts. Whether we are in situations created by nature or politics, by accident or by intent, by circumstances or by plan, may we have enough within ourselves to rise, to come up from where we have taken shelter or where we have been pushed to the ground, lifting up ourselves and all those around us, so that we may recreate ourselves and this world greater than it was before. May it be so. Amen.
We have two readings. Our first reading is adapted from Animal, Vegetable, Miracle by Barbara Kingsolver. Killing is a culturally loaded term, for most of us inextricably tied up with some version of a command that begins, "Thou shalt not." Every faith has it. And for all but perhaps the Jains of India, that command is absolutely conditional. Most of us, if we know even a little about where our food comes from, understand that every bite put into our mouths since infancy, barring the odd rock or marble, was formerly alive. The blunt biological truth is that we animals can only remain alive by eating other life. If we draw the okay to kill line between animal and plant, and thus exclude meat, fowl, and fish from our diet on moral grounds, we still must live with the fact that every sack of flour and every soybean-based block of tofu came from a field where countless winged and furry lives were extinguished in the plowing, cultivating, and harvest. Humans may only cultivate nonviolence in our diets by degree. I respect every diner who makes morally motivated choices about consumption, and I stand with nonviolence, but should I overlook the suffering of victims of hurricanes, famines, and war brought by profligate fuel consumption? Bananas that cost a rainforest, refrigerator trucked soy milk, and pre-washed spinach shipped 2,000 miles in plastic containers do not seem cruelty-free in this context. 100 different paths may lighten the world's load of suffering. Giving up meat is one path. Giving up bananas is another. The more we know about our food system, the more we are called into complex choices. Our second reading is by Amy Hassinger from Eating Ethically, which appeared in the spring 2007 UU World. Few things in life are more intimate than eating. When I eat a tomato, I am transforming it into my body. I take it into my mouth. My saliva and gastric juices break it down into nutrients that feed my muscles, my bones, my brain, my skin. Nor am I eating only a tomato. I'm eating the sun, soil, and rain that grew it. I'm also communing with the workers who planted the seed, cultivated the plant, and picked the fruit. Eating, even alone, is always a form of communion. It may be the most powerful way we Unitarian Universalists have of experiencing our seventh principle, of participating in the interdependent web of all existence.
I love that organic cooking. I always ask for more. And they call me Mr. Natural on down to the health food store. I only eat good sea salt. White sugar don't touch my lips. And my friends is always begging me to take them on macrobiotic trips. Yes, they are. Oh, but at night I take out my strong box that I keep under lock and key. And I take off to my closet where nobody else can see. I open that door so slowly, take a peek up north and south. Then I pull out a Hostess Twinkie and pop it into my mouth. Yeah, in the daytime I'm Mr. Natural, just as healthy as I can be. But at night I'm a junk food junkie. Lord have pity on me. Well, lunchtime you can always find me at the Whole Earth Vitamin Bar, just sucking on my plain white yogurt on my hand-thrown pottery jar, sipping a little hand-pressed cider with the carrot sticks for dessert, and wiping my face in a natural way on the sleeve of my peasant shirt. Oh yeah. Oh, when that clock strikes midnight and I'm all by myself, I work that combination on my secret mighty white shelf. And I pull out some Frito corn chips, Dr. Pepper, and an old moon pie. Then I sit back in glorious expectation of a genuine junk food high. In the daytime I'm Mr. Natural, just as healthy as I can be. But at night I'm a junk food junkie, and Lord have pity on me. My friends down at the commune, they think I'm pretty neat. Oh, I don't know nothing about arts and crafts, but I give them all something to eat. I'm a friend to old Yule Gibbons, and I only eat homegrown spice. And I got a John Keats autographed Grecian urn filled up with my brown rice. Yes, I do. Oh, but folks, lately I've been spotted with a Big Mac on my breath, stumbling into a Colonel Sanders with a white face as white as death. And I'm afraid someday they'll find me just stretched out on my bed, with a handful of Pringles potato chips and a ding-dong by my head. Yeah, in the daytime I'm Mr. Natural, just as healthy as I can be. But at night I'm a junk food junkie, good Lord have pity on me. In the daytime I'm Mr. Natural, just as healthy as can be. But at night I'm a junk food junkie, good Lord have pity on me.
When I was a child, and truly any time I have dinner with my parents in their home even today, we prayed before our meals. My father would begin the prayer, and then the rest of us would join in, and it was almost always this one. Come, Lord Jesus, be our guest, and let these gifts to us be blessed. Amen. However, if we went out to dinner, we didn't pray beforehand. And when I asked why we prayed at home but not anywhere else, my parents directed me to the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 5, which says, "And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray, standing in the synagogues and on the street corners, to be seen praying by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full." We were told that prayer was not meant to be a performance, but rather a personal and family experience of connecting with God. I'd like you to think back to your childhoods. By hearing about mine, hopefully it's making you think about your own experiences of food and religion, and maybe even rules. And I hope you're thinking a little bit about those rules and what they mean and how they might have changed for you. As an adult now, I don't do in my own home what we did when I was a kid. My partner and I do not pray before every meal. But the time I spend cooking is time that I spend thinking about and blessing what it is that I am cutting and cooking and baking and serving. I put my time and attention into what it is that I make and what it is that we consume. But it doesn't require a prayer ahead of time for me to feel like I'm doing it right. You may do exactly what you did in your childhood, or perhaps not. But these kinds of rules, do you pray, don't you, when do you bless what you do, these are just one of the ways in which religion and food intersect. When I was putting this together, I sat down and tried to think about any community, any culture that I could think of that didn't have some sort of rules or cultural mores, even religious law, about food and eating. The three Abrahamic traditions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, have rules and laws about the social and personal practices of eating. Who may eat together, and who must be separated? Will prayers be said? And if so, by whom and when? who may prepare, who may serve the food. Some of these overlap with religious practices having to do with which animals and plants are acceptable for food and which are not. Jewish rules about what is kosher and Muslim rules about what is halal speak to what may be eaten as well as to how it is raised, harvested, and prepared. Hindu, Sikh, and Buddhist traditions speak to what animals and plants are acceptable food, as well as consider whether animals are actually food, whether they are eating them is compatible with paths of greater religious devotion. And many people from those traditions are vegetarian or vegan out of religious conviction. And in China and in India, food is also seen as medicine, as symbol. For example, certain things are only to be eaten at certain times of year for health or luck. According to traditional Chinese medicine, if one is suffering from too much of a particular condition, eating foods that balance that condition is as important as many kinds of medical treatment would be. Not too long into the future, we will be having Chinese New Year and other Asian New Year's celebrations, when certain foods are eaten for luck, prosperity, and longevity. For example, long noodles are eaten without cutting them to symbolize long life. And other foods are eaten because their names sound like good fortune. In Mandarin, the word for fish sounds like the word for abundance. The word for tangerine sounds like the word for luck. In the Irish pre-Christian pagan tradition, certain foods carry important virtues. Salmon and hazelnuts are thought to contain and share wisdom when they are eaten. And pork carries the valor and the strength of the other world. And here, we have contemporary Western rules that draw on many of these traditions, as well as science and ethics, to create systems of eating that are bounded by rules, sometimes about purity or a particular moral code. And so along these lines, people become vegetarian or vegan. Some become locavores, meaning they only eat locally sourced foods. Some eat only organic foods. Some eat only fruits and nuts and grains that are shaken from stalks so that the plants themselves are not killed. And some eat only meats that they have hunted or fished themselves, and so on. This is a lot of rules. It's a lot of different ways to figure out what we're doing, how we're doing it. Are we doing it right? So why are there so many rules about food? Two of our readings tell us why. Eating is intimate, and it almost always requires death. And for human beings, intimacy and death always require rules. Barbara Kingsolver writes, "Most of us, if we know even a little bit about where our food comes from, understand that every bite put into our mouths since infancy, barring the occasional odd rock or marble, was formerly alive. The blunt biological truth is that we animals only remain alive by eating other life. We may only cultivate nonviolence in our diets by degree." And Amy Hassinger writes, "Few things in life are more intimate than eating. When I eat a tomato, I am transforming it into my body. I take it into my mouth. Nor am I only eating the tomato. I'm eating the sun and the soil and the rain that grew it. I am communing with the workers who planted the seed, cultivated the plant, and picked the fruit. Eating, even eating alone, is always a form of communion." We have rules for relationships, for sexuality, for the handling of bodies, for relationships and intimacy, the rituals of death. That's because we want to know what is right and wrong, what makes clear that we belong to a specific community or culture. In this way, we need rules about all things dealing with intimacy and death, and what that's really doing is trying to help us to have a sense of our place in the world, how we are connected to it and to one another. We really just want to know what our best choices are. And sometimes some of us want to make sure that others do what we think is best too. I am not one of those people, at least not here. I'm not interested in telling you which codes or ethics or rules you should use to decide what you eat. That is yours. My hope is that you will choose the foods that have the least negative impact possible on the earth and on the health of the food and the people who raise it, as well as those who eat it. And you can find your own way to do that, for yourself and for your families, as an omnivore or a vegan, as someone who eats halal or kosher, or without any distinctions of that sort. The key is to be aware of what you eat, and why, and how. Barbara Kingsolver points out that the effects of what we grow and eat on the people who do the work is also of great importance, and it's just as much a part of her thinking about ethical eating as is whether the food is animal, vegetable, fruit, or fungus. She writes, "I respect every diner who makes morally motivated choices about consumption, and I stand with nonviolence. But should I overlook the suffering of victims of hurricanes, famines, and wars brought by profligate fuel consumption? 100 different paths may lighten the world's load of suffering. Giving up meat is one path. Giving up bananas is another. And the more we know about our food system, the more we are called into complex choices. Those complex choices extend not only to the questions of what food we raise and eat, and how, and by whom, but also how we make sure that there is enough food, real food, for everyone in accessible and affordable ways. And so we here at the Universalist Church help attend to this through our food ministry. But there are other things to consider too. In 2008, our Unitarian Universalist Association decided to spend time studying the ethics of food and eating. In 2011, as a result of that study, they produced a statement of conscience considering food and environmental justice. In part, it says, "Some of us believe that it is ethical only to eat plants, while others of us believe that it is ethical to eat both plants and animals. We do not call here for a single dietary approach. We encourage a knowledgeable choice of food. As individuals and congregations, we recognize the need to examine the impact of our food choices and practices and make changes that will lighten the burden we place on the world. And we recognize that many food decisions will require us to make trade-offs between competing priorities. We are no different from all the other human beings on the planet. We want to know how to manage the profound concerns within the process of what we eat. We want to know that what we choose is good, that it is in line with our values and our beliefs, that it puts us in right relationship with the animals, plants, fungi, and ecosystems of this world that we share, even as we must also consume them. and the UUs who created this statement of conscience ask us to also be in right relationship with the people who produce our food and all those in this world who need to eat. Complex choices indeed. I believe that the goal is to make the raising, harvesting, distribution, preparation, and eating of food a sustainable system that honors the lives that have been taken for sustenance, the lives spent growing and making it, and the lives that are nurtured by it. We are what we eat. We are violence and disregard. We are extreme consumption and thoughtlessness, but we are also deep love and care, careful consumption and awareness. We are delight and flavor. John O'Donohue's prayer before meals reminds us of what we become as we eat. The quiver of the seed awakening in the earth, unfolding in a trust of roots and slender stems of growth, on a voyage toward harvest, the kiss of rain, the surge of sun, the innocence of an animal soul that never spoke a word, nourished by the earth, all of this to become today our food. The work of all the strangers whose hands prepared it. So given all of this, what might your rules be? If you are what you eat, what might guide your choices to become a body in right relationship with the world? What might lead you into sustaining your life through food in a way that has integrity with our covenants and with your beliefs? You might choose to follow dietary laws, rules, and symbolisms, and I follow those that make sense to me. I eat salmon and hazelnuts and pork, knowing that that is within the bounds of an old Celtic symbolism of wisdom and strength. I grow and I gather and I purchase food with intent and thankfulness. I find things that are local, raised by families or by local people to the best of my ability. And then I prepare that food with the intent to nourish and love the people who I will feed. I really value writer Michael Pollan's admonition. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. I try really hard not to eat things that I can't identify as actual food, recognizably made of biological ingredients. I pray with my family and my community before meals, but I don't generally visibly pray in public. I never cut a noodle. It is a struggle sometimes to only purchase foods that are local, organic, raised by someone I know personally. And in my life, I have eaten things that I know are not within my ethics in moments of expedience and hunger, and occasionally just flat-out craving. I forget sometimes that there are places where people can't get a fresh zucchini or a really good apple. I have consumed too much, or without thinking about it. Even when I bring in vegetables and herbs from my own garden, I have to face that I kill things in order to survive. And in this way, there are no easy answers. After looking long and hard for just one easy answer, I cannot find any one prescription for a diet that will save us all, that we can all eat in health and in justice and in joy. Without maybe a return to subsistence farming, everything is so complex that we cannot be pure or perfect. And that is why I chose our responsive reading this morning. You do not have to be good. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Maybe that's not entirely true, but I would say it like this. We cannot only be good or harmless in our eating. But I want to remind this soft animal and your soft animals that what they truly love, what lets it live at its strongest and most vibrant, can be what is best for it and everything else when we are careful with our choices. So may we attend to the needs and loves of our bodies and the needs and the care of this earth, the needs and the care of those who grow and prepare our food, and all of the other things on the earth that must survive too, so that we can live well and faithfully in right relationship, and also enjoying the flavor of what is good and what is food. May it be so. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 1067 in the Teal hymnal. If you have one, you are welcome to sing along at home. We'll be singing verses 1, 3, and 4 of Mother Earth, Beloved Garden. Let us join in speaking our unison benediction. Engage with the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. And please remain for our postlude.